All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Okay, good. Because today we're looking at something that's super relevant for all you UPSC aspirants out there. We're talking about delimitation.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. It comes up all the time in current affairs.
For sure. And I bet it'll be in the mains exam, too.
You bet.
Basically, we're talking about how India redraws the boundaries of its electoral constituencies.
Right, and how that whole process can really shake up representation, in the Lok Sabha.
Exactly. And to really get into the nitty-gritty of it, we're using this article from The Hindu.
Yep, it's called Delimitation Debate, Balancing Representation, Federalism, and Political Concerns.
Catchy title, huh?
It gets right to the heart of the matter.
So what's the big question here, the thing we really want to unpack in this deep dive?
Well, think about it this way. India wants to make sure everyone's vote counts equally right. But what happens when you have states that are at different stages of development? Some states have done a great job controlling your population while others haven't. How do you balance fair representation based purely on population with the fact that some states have worked really hard to achieve certain development goals?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So is that where this whole north-south thing comes in?
Well, kind of. This article from The Hindu points out how some southern states are getting a little anxious about the whole delimitation thing.
Anxious how? What are they worried about?
Well, they're saying, hey, we've been working hard to get our population under control, and we've made real progress on things like education and healthcare.
Right, they often score very highly on those human development indicators.
Exactly. And now they're looking at the 2021 census numbers, and they're thinking, hold on, does this mean we're actually going to lose seats in the Lok Sabha because our population hasn't grown as fast as other states?
Yeah, but that's kind of how it works, right? More people equal more representation.
In theory, sure, but these southern states are bringing up a really interesting point. Should development be factored into representation? Should a state that's really excelled in areas like literacy and economic growth be penalized for having a slower population growth?
So then what are we saying, that a vote in one state is worth more than a vote in another?
That's the big question, isn't
Doesn't
it?
seem very fair or very democratic.
And that's exactly the kind of tension that delimitation brings up. You see, this disparity in potential seat allocation has fueled a debate about a potential north-south divide.
Oh, right, because if the South loses seats and the North gains seats.
Some Southern leaders are worried that it'll give the North too much power in Parliament. And that could lead to policies that don't really serve the South's interests.
Right, I see. So it's not just about numbers, it's about power dynamics too. Has India ever dealt with this kind of thing before?
Oh, absolutely. Past delimitation exercises have definitely tried to find some sort of middle ground.
Really, like how?
Well, take a look at the really small states, the ones with tiny populations. Even they're guaranteed at least one Lok Sabha seat. It's a way of recognizing that sometimes pure majoritarianism isn't always the best answer.
Interesting. So what are some of the options being floated around now for how to deal with this whole delimitation dilemma?
Well, one option is to just go with a strict population-based delimitation.
Just stick to the numbers.
Yeah, in theory, it sounds fair. Everyone's vote carries equal weight and all that, but as we've seen, it could also lead to some pretty big shifts in representation.
And that could end up disadvantaging those states that have been successful at managing population growth.
Exactly. So then there's this other idea, which is to expand the size of the Lok Sabha.
Wait, so just add more seats?
Yep, that way no state actually loses any seats, and the states with bigger populations, they get more representation. Seems like a good solution.
Well, on the surface, yeah, but what about the logistics of it all? I mean, how do you just add a bunch of new representatives like that?
Exactly. It's not as simple as it sounds. Plus, it brings up questions about cost, and whether it even really solves the fundamental issue.
Yeah, that makes sense. So is there another way to approach this?
Well, some people are suggesting that we need to take a look at the Rajya Sabha.
Okay, the upper house of parliament. What about it?
Well, the idea is to reform it in a way that gives states more equal representation. It would require some pretty big changes to the Constitution, though.
Yeah, constitutional amendments are never easy.
True, but this approach really gets to the heart of the debate. So what does democracy actually mean in the Indian context? Is it purely about numbers? Or should we also be thinking about the need for federal balance, making sure that all states have a strong voice regardless of their population size?
Wow, that's a really big question. This whole delimitation thing, it really gets you thinking, doesn't it?
For sure. And this is exactly the kind of stuff that our UPSC aspirants need to be grappling with.
So for those of you studying for those exams, how can you use what we've talked about today to your advantage?
Well, I'd say the biggest takeaway is this. Don't get caught up in those overly simplistic narratives. This isn't just a North versus South issue, and it's not about which political party comes out on top.
Right, it's much more nuanced than that.
Exactly. So when you're looking at this debate, think critically. Look at the pros and cons of each proposed solution. Ask yourself about the potential unintended consequences. And most importantly, how does each solution align with the core principles of the Indian Constitution?
This has been such an insightful discussion. It really shows how something happening right now in current events can help us understand the Indian political system at a much deeper level.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So to all our listeners out there, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into these critical current affairs topics.
Yeah, we've got a lot more coming your way, especially for our UPSC aspirants.
And if you've got questions or thoughts about this whole delimitation issue, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you think.
Absolutely. Let's keep this conversation going.
And of course, we want to give a big thank you to The Hindu for their fantastic article. It was the foundation for today's deep dive.
Great stuff as always.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.
See you then.